Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show. We are just 24 days away at this time of recording from the NFL draft, which is like Christmas to me. And we're going to talk a lot about it today, but we're going to talk about it in a different fashion. We're not going to talk about who the best players are. We're not going to talk about positional rankings. We're going to talk about fit. Who are the best fits for the Minnesota Vikings in this draft class at the positions that they need the most? And then we're going to finish off, as always, with a mock draft. Welcome to the Real Forno Show.
Welcome to the Real Forno Show. Managing editor of the USA Today's Vikings Wire. Betting and college football analysis for the Fantasy Points website. Publisher of Substack Run and Shooter. Host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, as well as a founding member of Vikings First and SKOL.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Forno Show. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. With me, as always, producer Dave, top right corner. Dave, how are you?
I'm good. Been a busy day. Busy Monday. Productive Monday. Love it.
You know what? I feel the exact same way. And it's been a good one. But I'll tell you this. I'm just excited for the draft to get here. We're only 24 days away. And as much as I love to talk about it, there is nothing quite like being able to watch it happen live, as it is the best reality show that you can imagine.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right. So we are going to talk about a lot of different things here today. We're going to talk about fits, Dave. And one of the things that I really try to prioritize here with some of my scouting is I like to look at how each player is going to fit into what the team wants to do. And it's not always, hey, this X guy is more talented than Y guy, so you have to bring him in. It's not always going to be, hey, they like this guy, so he has to be the pick. There's so many little nuances to this process, and you can kind of follow along here. It's not just about the film. The major basis of everything that you get is from the film. Then you have the Senior Bowl, where you get to see them up close. You get to see like quick twitch, explosiveness, technique. You get to see a lot of little things, as we can hear Merlin in the background just angry at the fact that I'm talking about the Senior Bowl. And then you get the scouting combine, where you get even more data. You get explosiveness testing. You get to interview the players. You get medicals. All of those little things. It makes a really big difference. Then, on top of all that, then you get pro days, which even more information coming. And then you get what's happening right now, which is the top 30 visits. Now, each team is allotted 30 visits. And this next part's a little vague, but for the Vikings, it means anybody from the University of Minnesota can basically visit the facility without counting towards those top 30.
I'm about to say, there's a caveat to that 30, and it deals with local players and how they determine local.
I believe it's within a 90-mile radius. I don't know 100% for sure. I was not able to get confirmation after looking for about a half an hour. I've always been told it's within a 90-mile radius. I heard somebody tell me 100. I heard somebody say it's within the same state, which I don't believe is the case, because otherwise, like, the San Francisco 49ers could go down to like San Diego State, and even though it's like an 8-hour or some drive, if not more, like that's not local. Like, that's kind of defeating the point, and it makes it unfair to those who are in smaller states. And I also saw an article from Mike Florio that was written before the lockout, which is why I think this might be outdated. So this was summer of 2011, where it's within the same metropolitan area, which is why I think it might still be correct. The same metropolitan area, meaning, hey, if the school is located within the reason of New York City, it's the New York teams can go contact. Tampa Bay, like Orlando's super close. That probably counts if you want to like count like UCF. For Minnesota, Egan and Minneapolis St. Paul, pretty damn close. Same metropolitan area because they're in the outlying suburbs. So the Vikings have already scheduled visits with at least 3 Gophers. I don't know. I see Anthony put Mohammed Ibrahim in the comments. I don't know if he's one of them. It's Jordan Howden, Terrell Smith, and John Michael Schmitz have all either visited or will be visiting. And then we have a tracker up at VikingsWire.com where we're going to keep tabs of all of that. And it's going to be updated consistently to make sure that we are up to date with everybody that is coming to visit.
Outstanding.
We do what we can at Vikings Wire, where we are your number one written source for the Minnesota Vikings. As Vikings First and SKOL is your number one audio source and video, because I mean, look at our pretty faces. Like I've got the hair, Dave's got the beard. We're a perfect tandem. But let's keep talking about this Vikings team, Dave. We should talk about a couple news things. There was a report that came from Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, and he said that among people in the league, now this isn't media, this is actually people in the league, they said that they believe Kirk Cousins was going to be traded to the San Francisco 49ers. And they said this at the Combine. Things have obviously gotten a little more murky now with the fact that they restructured his contract, and then there's this massive dead cap hit. But I still think you cannot completely rule it out for the sole fact, well, it's Kirk Cousins. Like, if you can make a trade, you should seriously consider it, especially if it brings you back to quarterback of the future. What are your thoughts
and
here,
and the talks were, and they were football people. It wasn't the press. The talks were that the trade would be Kirk Cousins to San Francisco, Trey Lance to Minnesota. And I don't know if that's before they got, who'd they get as their backup? Baker? Somebody. I don't know if that was before San Francisco did its thing, or it's definitely before the extension of Kirk Cousins, money-wise, and it's just money, to get under the cap. But I don't know. I find it interesting. We've all been interested in Trey Lance. He, grew up in Minnesota, went to NDSU. There is the connection there. There's also the question mark there. He has been injured quite often. He hasn't played that many games. Makes you wonder, but he's a whole lot cheaper, and you'd have him for, 2 years worth of control at relatively cheap prices. I don't know if it's going to happen. It would be definitely interesting if it did. We'll find out. It's one of those that's probably, it doesn't have to be before the draft. It may be before the draft, but it may be after, the top quarterbacks fall off the board. And that could be as quick as the first 5 picks. It could be, days after the draft. We don't know when that may take place. I don't think this will be drawn out all the way through OTAs until we run up to camp. Some other trades may do that. Dalvin Cook may be one of them that draws out that long. But I don't know. With the moves both the Vikings made and San Francisco made, I don't know if it's going to happen or not. It would definitely be interesting. And they know Trey Lance. They watched him practice in Egan last year. So, and they know the system, or he knows the system. So,
what would be interesting here, and Anthony asked the question about Lance in Minnesota, I'll get to that here in a second. If they wanted to do it from a salary cap perspective, trading Kirk Cousins would add around $18 million in cap space. Acquiring Trey Lance would add about 5.5. So you would need to clear $23 million in cap space. That would be relatively easy. Zadarius Smith, Dalvin Cook trades, and you restructure Brian O'Neill. That clears all of it up. So there's a path. And the restructure of Brian O'Neill would push $9 total million into future years, which in theory, he's going to be on your roster no matter what. So you feel more comfortable about that. The only caveat here, Dave, is the fact that Brian O'Neill is coming off that partially torn Achilles. The fact that it's partially torn is the caveat here. Because if it was fully torn, then you're looking at a very severe injury for a big football player. And those are never good. But because it was partially torn, it's got more structural stability, and that makes a huge difference in recovery and potential explosiveness loss. And it should take less time for him to be more comfortable. And
we know Phil Lodeholt had his Achilles completely tear, and he was out. And when he came back, he was never quite the same. But yeah. I agree with a slightly torn Achilles. That still means the tendon's attached. It's healing in the attached position. I think we're going to get better results. And sports medicine has improved so much since then. It used to be an ACL tear was a death knell. Now it's like dude's had two and he's still going strong. It depends on the injury, who's doing the recovery. I think we have the best sports science team in the business, even though I don't know if you saw the article that a couple of the guys are being fined by the state of Minnesota for not having their full documentation and being fully licensed in Minnesota because regulations and government and all.
Yeah.
But
I wrote that article, Dave.
Oh, well, then you saw
it. Yeah. It's so the whole thing is very interesting. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I think Trey Lance would be a really nice fit in this offense. He would be a player worth betting on, only 23 years old, has been in the NFL for 2 years. And it's his path has been very unfortunate because after a dominant redshirt freshman year where he won a national championship with NDSU, he played in one game in 2020 due to the pandemic and the FCS moving their season to the spring. And then he ended up going to the draft, sat out pretty much his entire rookie year, which is totally fine. You probably wanted to do that with him. And then 2 games in to his 2022 season, snaps his leg and he's out for the year. So you're talking about a guy who's just had an unfortunate path, and it has nothing to do with talent. That's the even tougher part. None of it's talent based. Like his position with the 49ers isn't because he's not a good football player or could be a great football player. It's Kyle Shanahan being Kyle Shanahan, and I have this guy who can just effectively and efficiently run my offense. Let's go with him. And even though he's got a torn UCL in his elbow, but I think Lance is still a guy worth betting on. And I like that idea quite a bit.
And I think KOC could polish him if he stays healthy. I think the Shanahan McVay style of offenses are real similar. So I don't think a transition would be rough. I think it'd be rather smooth. And it would give Justin Jefferson somebody to grow with, a quarterback he could grow with, and not know that, hey, this is the last season for my quarterback. What am I going to do after this? Do I want to extend because of pure uncertainty? He would have that certainty, which would be a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I see GMAC in the comments. QB Guru Kyle Shanahan wants him gone. I'm skeptical. Kyle Shanahan has been begging for Kirk Cousins for almost a decade. Like, I think Kyle Shanahan is great with a traitsy quarterback, but that's not what he wants. He wants a guy who can deliver with timing. He wants a guy like Brock Purdy. And I think the fact that he had the emergence of Brock Purdy gives him an excuse to default back and take the guy who can just operate the offense but not really give them anything extra. And that's Brock Purdy. Like, it kind of is what it is. Like, even the best.
There's something to be said about being able to operate the offense efficiently. And it works, especially when you got a kick-ass defense, to hit a chilly term. And their defense is awesome. So you pair that together, it works. They get into the playoffs. They get usually deep into the playoffs. So they're always a competitor. Even as it sits today, the two best teams in the NFC, consensus-wise, are the 49ers and the Eagles. That's it. Period.
Yeah.
I think Vikings are third or fourth on that list. So you can't beat that. Now, if we got Trey Lance and he comes to the Vikings, Kirk Cousins goes bye-bye and goes out to the West Coast. I don't care what Kirk Cousins does after that. Does Trey Lance make this team more competitive this season in 2023, than Kirk Cousins would? And if so, by how much, or if not, by how much? And I don't think there's hardly any difference there. If anything, I would bump Trey Lance if he stays healthy and his talent and his expected growth, because he's, even though he hasn't played a lot, he's grown mentally. I expect that to be what takes things over the top more than I do with Kirk Cousins going to be 35 and knowing he's playing for a contract and, whatever. Disappointed that he didn't get his 3 years extension all guaranteed.
So I'll say this. I think in the range of outcomes that we're talking about with Trey Lance quarterbacking the Minnesota Vikings in 2023, I think there aren't a whole lot of scenarios where he's significantly better than Kirk Cousins this year. But I think in a long-term sense, I think Trey Lance could be a top 10 quarterback in this league and be consistent. And I loved him coming out of college. Right now, I have 53 players fully graded. If Trey Lance was in this draft class, he'd be my number one overall player. I gave him a 90.5 out of 100 when he was coming out of NDSU. He was so intelligent at the line of scrimmage, and he was running the offense like a senior, not a redshirt freshman. Like those are the kind of things that you're talking about. But just next year, Cousins was really good last year, man. And the whole reason why we want to move on from him has nothing to do with the fact that he was really good last year. It's the fact that he's 35, he's expensive, and quite frankly, it's just time. And that's not necessarily, hey, Cousins can't be good next year, it can't be good the year after that. We're trying to reset, and we have to worry about paying guys who are, quite frankly, better football players than Kirk Cousins. Justin Jefferson, Christian Darrisaw, Danielle Hunter. Like, those guys all need to get paid too. And you got to take a shot on a quarterback. And let's dispel this narrative. And Purple Daily talked about it. And then we're going to go to some of these prospect best fits. This is what the whole show is going to be today.
Aaron asked it.
It doesn't.
He said it was hot today. It was hot today. 92 degrees down here in Austin.
Oh, go away. Wait,
you got another snowstorm on the way?
I don't want to talk about it, okay? I don't even remember what I was going to talk about. I took a nap an hour ago, and my brain is just
We're talking about fits. You wanted best fits in 4 specific categories.
No. I was going to say something else before we got there.
Oh, okay.
That's what I can't remember. And it's because we got sidetracked with this whole weather discussion.
It's all my fault. Yeah. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, it is your fault. We're going to go with that, even though I am younger than you and my brain shouldn't be doing this. All right, whatever. If I remember it, I will come back to it. I don't. Meantime, let's talk about.
Let me talk. Anthony talks about one more year of Kirk and then the 2024 draft. You're going to have to move up. We'd have to move up this if we draft something this year. But if you draft in 2024, it's rare that a rookie takes you to the playoffs. You're almost wasting that year if that's the case. It has happened before. It's not out of the question, but so is taking the last guy in the draft, getting you to the playoffs. but it's rare. So if you can have somebody, if we draft somebody this year and he sits behind Kirk, I'm cool with that. He gets that year of learning. If we trade for some reason, get Trey Lance, he's already been in the league 2 years, still young. I'm cool with that. That's the reason why, Anthony, I think they're going to make the move this year, especially if the board falls the way they want it to. It may not. The top quarterbacks maybe go 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth one by like the fifth pick. Who knows? But that is the way I look at it. And I'd rather do it that way than waste really 2024 on a rookie, starting a flat out rookie. And maybe Kwesi thinks the same way. Kevin O'Connell thinks the same way. I don't know. We'll find out. But that's just me.
Mm-hmm. I'm intrigued to see the rookie. But you know what? Let's start with quarterback. Best fitted quarterback. And I think you could make an argument for CJ Stroud. But when we're talking about fit, we're not just going to talk about player. We're going to talk about draft position. Vikings are going to be nowhere freaking near the position to be able to draft CJ Stroud because they don't pick number 1 overall. And I really think that Stroud is going to go first overall because he is the number 1 player currently on my board. Oh, hi, buddy. Odie decided that he wants to play with Dad. So this will be fun because he's going to bite my toes for the next half hour. Oh, he'll get it eventually because he'll be biting my toes enough where I'm just going to get mad and pick him up.
No, but Stroud isn't going to make it past 2 at the latest.
And that's why we're going to talk Will Levis. Will Levis is a perfect fit for what the Vikings want to do. He has the ability to create off platform. He has the ability to throw off platform. And he has experience in this offense, which I think is going to be tremendously key. All right, Odie, you're going to come up here now because you're biting my toes and I don't like it. So, say hi to your little buddies.
Listen to him grunt. Hello, Odie. You're the good boy.
He's a very good boy. And I know everybody loves the Odie boy, and so do I. But he's done with his little treat bowl, and now he thinks my feet are the treats. But that is what you get with the puppy. He's a freaking puppy. I think Levis offers you Kirk Cousins' downside with the ability to make the wow throws that you see on SportsCenter's top 10, the Josh Allens of the world. And I think that is one thing that is so intriguing. And thanks, Aaron. I'm not going to lose it again because now we're actually in kind of the meat and potatoes of what I had planned to talk about. When you combine everything, Dave, I think this is the best case scenario for the Vikings. Will Levis ends up falling to 23. You don't have to move. You just get your guy. But I also don't think it's going to happen. I think you're going to have to move up to get him.
Well, I was about to ask. I don't think he lasts that far. I think we're going to have to go get him if that's who they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, Odie is a good boy, and he's being very good, thankfully, because he's good when he sits in my lap. He's just like, I don't want to be up here, Dad. I want to go bite your feet. But let's move on to running back because I want to kind of do like quick hitters. And listen, if you want a lot more information on these guys, please search Vikings Wire and the player, and their scouting report will pop up in the Google search, and then you can read all about them. I also have, and I'll see if I can get Dave to throw it in the notes, my spreadsheet with every scouting report I've done, their grade, and where they're currently ranked on my big board. And then running back, I think there's a couple of guys that I really like for the Minnesota Vikings. And what's interesting about running back is I'm not quite sure how they're going to approach it. The 49ers have liked like the traditional one cut and go backs. They don't necessarily do X, Y, or Z. They don't prioritize bigger backs. They like bigger backs, but they don't need it. Jeff Wilson Jr. wasn't a bigger back. Christian McCaffrey, not a bigger back. One guy I really love for the Vikings, his name is Zach Charbonnet. running back, UCLA. And I wrote him up last week. I love his game. He's not quite as fast as you would like to see, but one thing I really like is he can do everything. He can block, he can catch the ball. He is a very decisive runner with good vision, and he breaks and avoids tackles. He does a little bit of everything, Dave, and I think that's, to me, what will be a huge draw. Think of Alexander Madison, but a good football player. That I think Charbonnet is a better version of what Alexander Madison is, and that's not a 1-to-1. It's not completely identical, but to give you guys a sense of what I'm talking about, that's kind of what I mean. I really like Charbonnet. Have you had an opportunity to look at him at all, Dave?
No, I have not. All right, I have a graphic for you.
That's okay. Another guy I really like, my Orthos opinion will get there because I want to talk about some of these guys first. Aaron, Charbonnet's got much better vision than what's his name? Alexander Madison. Madison couldn't see an easy bake oven in front of him.
He could. He just gets a little tunnel vision. That's nothing.
Sorry, you're right. He can't see it to the left or the right, but he could see it straight ahead. Eric Gray, Oklahoma. Not a consensus 5-star prospect, but by some recruiting systems, he was a 5-star. And he started at Tennessee, played 2 years. Then when Josh Heupel got the job, he transferred to Oklahoma. This year, he finally had an opportunity to be the guy, and it was amazing what he was able to do. He's only 5'9", but he weighs 210 pounds. And talking to him at the Senior Bowl, he's built very well. Very thick, powerful legs. And you're not talking about a guy who's 5'9" and small. You're talking about a guy who is well-proportioned and built to play the running back position. And when he blocks in pass protection, he does a really good job. I liked what I saw from Eric Gray from a vision standpoint. He grew exponentially throughout the year. Early on, he was kind of running into blockers, not setting himself up well. By the end of the year, that West Virginia game showed how much he had grown. And he had 200-plus yards, 4 touchdowns, and just dominated the Mountaineers in a game that Oklahoma needed to win to become bowl eligible. He is a player that I would love, and he's a guy you're going to take day 3. But I think he could be a very good day 3 pick, and I think he could be a value on day 3. Right, Odie? Say hi, Odie.
What's he do on special teams?
I have not seen him on special teams, but I think he could be a kind of a jack of all trades. He could be on the coverage units. He could be on kickoff return. Punt return, I'm not sure, but you could use him on special teams, and I think that's a big thing. If only Aaron could see that. Or sorry, if only Ryan could see that.
Well, Aaron lives here in Austin, which, of course, is home of UT. The Longhorns.
Dope. Look him. Sorry, the Sooner was blocking the horns. So what round would I take a running back? I would start to consider it at 87. I'm not dead set like, oh, you have to get one at any specific point, but this draft is deep. If you like a guy, take him. Or even better, try to move down and get him. Like, there's a lot. I've gone through 8 guys. Only one of them has a 4th-round grade. One has a 1st-round grade, and the rest, I've got 4 2nd-round and 2 3rd-round. This is a very good running back class, and I haven't even gotten to, like, a lot of the good ones. I'm probably not going to get to my favorite running back in this class, and Keaton Mitchell from East Carolina. I want to get to Roschon Johnson. He'll be one of my last couple running backs. Ibrahim, I want to see the testing numbers. I really do, because that's going to tell me if he can be really good in the NFL level, because he's got everything else. I want to see the testing numbers. I have not had an opportunity to see those. But let's move on, because I want to get wide receiver and cornerback before we get out of this segment and we go to the mock draft. The best fit, Quentin Johnston, TCU. I've talked about him ad nauseum. He's my number 2 overall player. He'll be number 3 once I finish Jalen Carter. I can almost guarantee that. I love Johnston's game. I love what he's able to do at the catch point. I love what he's able to do in a lot of different areas. He's phenomenal after the catch. Odie, say hi. Say hi, bud. Yeah. Everybody loves Odie time, so want to make sure he gets in there. And the best part is he's so good after the catch, at the catch point, and like being a deep ball wide receiver, you can live with the fact he's not a great route runner yet. You can live with it. And you can allow him to develop there while utilizing his other skills that are developed. And I think that's what makes him so intriguing. I think he's the only one in this class that has the true potential to be a wide receiver one, that prototypical guy you want on the outside. And with Justin Jefferson opposite of him, Johnson's going to get opportunities against good coverage, especially with TJ Hawkinson there too. He's going to be your number 3 option, and he's going to get opportunities to grow, to thrive, and I think that would be a tremendous asset to the Minnesota Vikings. What do you think, Dave?
Hey, I'm all for a decent wide receiver too.
Odie, say bye-bye.
If it's him, hey, no problem. Welcome to the show, Dr. Proto. We have joy. We're talking about good fits at the moment. You have Tyler's draft crush on the screen, Mr. Quentin Johnston.
That year, you get Josh Jackson vibes because they had the same helmet. I think he's better. Davey, if I could put Fighting 69 in there, I would, but I would really, really like a dog that's alive.
Plus, they can't get Fighting 69th in Minnesota, Davey. It's one of the states it is not distributed to.
Yeah. One other guy I really like that I haven't talked a lot about recently, and he's kind of fallen down the board a little bit for some people. It's Rashee Rice from SMU. I love Rashee Rice. He is built thick. He's like 6 foot, 215. He ran well. He's great getting through contact. He's great at the catch point. And he has not true game-breaking speed, but he has enough speed to break away and turn like a 50-yard run into a 70-yard run. Like, he's not going to get like that extra burst to really be able to take it home and get a touchdown most of the time. But he's going to be able to do so much for you that it's going to be able to make a difference. And plus, he does what Kevin O'Connell loves his receivers to do, Dave. He can block. He's a great blocker. He's an effort blocker. And he's going to be able to do so much of that. And he is somebody that I would love on the Vikings. And I'll be honest, Dave, I think you'd become a fast fan.
Hey, I'd love it. And I like wide receivers that block. Blocking is a skill, and you can grow to absolutely love it. Because if you can knock somebody on their tail, God, there's such a great feeling. The only better feeling is knocking a quarterback on his tail and hearing the air leave his lungs. That is the perfect sound. But as a wide receiver, if you get that on a corner, God, sweetness.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. So, let's talk about cornerback. Cornerback's going to be the last position we talk about because these are the 4 positions that I think the Vikings will probably end up targeting the most. Edge, I think you could swap out with running back, but I wanted to talk about running backs because we really haven't done so yet. Odie, you're fine, bud. Get one of your 5 million toys on the ground. Cornerback, there's 2 guys I really want to point out. One of them is Deonte Banks. Everybody should know Deonte Banks by now because he is the most popular mock draft choice among all of them. And when I pull up the mock draft tracker, Dave, Deonte Banks has been sent to the Minnesota Vikings 35 times. Cam Smith is at number 2 with 23. Kelee Ringo, who I don't think is a first-round corner at all, and I think he's going to end up falling out, but he was a very popular pick early. Kelee Ringo is number 3 at 22 overall. If you want to see the rest of the top 10, I did put something up on Vikings Wire this morning, and I will end up updating that here before the end of the draft cycle. I think it's interesting to see what the experts are saying about the position and what they think the Vikings will end up doing.
Well,
So,
isn't Deontay Banks, isn't he also talked about as a tweener between a corner and safety?
No, that's Brian Branch,
That's
the Alabama
Branch.
kid.
Never mind.
So Banks is a very physical press man corner. He's built. Dave, he is perfectly built for what Brian Flores wants to do. The big thing with Banks and why he's not higher, he doesn't trust his technique enough yet. He doesn't trust he relies too much on his athletic gifts, which is fine in college. Once you get to the NFL, you can't rely on those gifts as much, and you have to be able to lean back on the technique, be able to stay with players instead of like, oh, he's got 2 steps on me. Now I got to kick it into 5th gear and be able to catch back up. It's great to have that. You're going to get beat in the NFL. Cornerback is about losing the least, not winning the most. And if he can learn to just trust himself more, Vikings would have a really good corner on their hands. And that's kind of where I transition to my other guy that I love for this defense. And that is South Carolina cornerback Darius Rush, not Cam Smith, his teammate. I didn't know anything about Rush going into the Senior Bowl. I watched him in practice. I'm like, okay, this dude can ball. Then I turned on the film, and the practice translated directly to the film, and I came away extremely impressed. One of the things that was interesting with Rush, he is very, very athletically gifted. Ran a 4.36 at the combine. He's a bigger dude, 200 pounds, over 6 feet tall. Here's the thing with Rush. He loses a lot early on in the route. And there were reps at the Senior Bowl where he would lose right away. And he would have the intelligence and the athleticism to be able to undercut like a dig route and get the interception or the pass breakup. If you can get that guy to lose less earlier on, you could have a very good corner on your hands because of the athleticism, because of the physicality, and the ability to recover. You just have to make sure he doesn't have to recover as much. And it's the same thing with Banks. He's got to be better in technique, and he has to be able to trust himself more in doing so. If you can get those out of your cornerbacks, that would be tremendous. Thadir says he likes Rush on day 2. I do as well. I think it'd be a tremendous pick at 87. But we'll see. I'm very intrigued to see how Kwesi attacks his cornerback class, where he sees the value. Because the value right now, it is not in the first round, in my opinion. It is between like pick 40 and 90. That's where you're going to find the best value. So where a receiver, I think, is going to drop off at about pick 50, corner is going to still be really good and flush with talent. And that's where I think that you can end up getting some really talented players late that could end up starting for you.
We have a side discussion going in the remarks. Guys are talking some preferred sizes. I'll leave it at that.
Well, I'm glad that they're having a good time. But you and I have a good time now, Dave, because it is time to do our weekly mock draft.
Let's mock. Welcome to the Real Forno Show's Mock Draft Mondays. Who will the Vikings pick, and who's your favorite choice? And
bingo,
here we are.
Bingo, bingo.
And you don't need to look at that. That was a message.
I'm gonna pause the video later, and I'm gonna read all of it, Dave.
Oh, well, it's no biggie. It was, who did I send it to? That was my daughter. Showing her the weather and showing Merlin looking at the squirrel. You know, tough stuff.
Yeah. All right, let's talk mock draft. So we're going to approach this. Dave, if you hit fast, it'll automatically jump to the next pick, so we don't even have to wait, which I think could be really interesting. I I don't want to do trades here. I want
Okay.
to talk about the prospects that are available at these picks, and I want us to have conversations about who we would take. And I think that is going to be the most important thing right now, is just to understand the talent that'll be available at certain spots. So let's do that.
Oh, don't give me this week. Start. There we go. Start draft. And we're on the clock. You're kidding about jumping. Mm-hmm. Can you read this?
I can kind of read it. It's still blurry for me. I don't know why. It is what it is. I also think it's because I'm not using Brave right now. That probably is making a difference.
Oh, we need to move you off Chrome.
Yeah, that probably makes a difference. Okay. So let's take a look. We've got Bijan Robinson, Brian Branch, Derek Hall, Cam Smith, John Michael Schmitz, Dalton Kincaid, Julius Brents. When I take a look at all these, I think there's one player that stands out above the rest, Dave. And it's a player we've talked about. It's a player that it just got announced that be having a top 50 visit with the Minnesota Vikings. That is Alabama safety Brian Branch. I would take him here 10 out of 10 based on who's available. I don't see the value. Like, I love Julius Brents. I like Cam Smith. But we talked about corner being the position that it is and how you can probably wait. I think Branch's ability to be a versatile playmaker on multiple levels of the defense just makes way too much sense. And that is a Brian Flores player. Okay. So I'm taking Brian Branch here 10 out of 10. What do you think?
I'm cool with it. Drafted.
Perfect. So here we are. So we're up again. This is where corner can get really interesting. Mm-hmm. So you have Jordan Battle, the other safety from Alabama, who I don't think is a very good fit for the Vikings, especially considering they just drafted Lewis Cine. They kind of play the same position, except Battle is a much lesser athlete. That's why he's available at pick 87. Rashee Rice, who I talked about earlier, I love Rashee Rice. I'm weary if they're going to pick him, Dave, because last year, Kwesi adofo-mensah did not take any group of 5 players. He only took Power 5 players, and Rashee Rice plays at SMU in the AAC. Kai Blue Kelly, if you remember Brian Kelly, he was the nickelback for those Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense in the 2000. Kai Blue is his son. So he's got lineage on top of being a very good player. Sam Laporta, tight end Iowa.
Understanding at nickel, and we need a nickel.
Mm-hmm. We're not touching tight end here. Garrett Williams, cornerback Syracuse, tore his ACL in October. Probably ready for this year, but I think unless you have him so far ahead of who you're who else is on the board, I'm passing on him just because of the injury. Diane Henley and DeMarvion Overshone. I'm out on Noel Sewell as a linebacker. I just don't think he has the athleticism. Here's the guy we're going to end up taking. We're going to take a wide receiver here, a guy that I really like, who I think will fit well into this system. I wish he was more of a burner, but he can win deep, and he's so crafty in space and with his route running. Dave, you're already on him right now. It's Iowa State's Xavier Hutchinson. Came away very impressed with this film, and sometimes with college film, you have to ask yourself, can this player do it just because he wasn't afforded the opportunity to do it? And Hutchinson played in an offense that was, quite frankly, abysmal with really bad quarterback play. So you have to take those things into consideration when you're drafting a player. Let's take a look at the rest of the board. Jaren Hall is a very intriguing option, quarterback. He's 25, but he's a less worrisome 25 than Hendon Hooker. And I think that is a big deal. Jaren Hall makes full field reads already. Jaren Hall can drop it in a bucket. He has some issues with dealing with pressure. A lot of college quarterbacks do. Otherwise, you're looking at a lot of cornerbacks. You're looking at some wide receivers. We just took a receiver. We took a safety. So, Dave, I'm kind of leaning towards taking the quarterback here. What do you think about Jaren Hall?
He's developmental, could turn into a nice backup someday, maybe. That's the only thing I see out of him. But it's quarterbacks are tough. If what is it? Out of all the first rounders, 47% make it to be adequate. Of that, there's some that make it really, really good, and all the rest fail. And that drops down to the 10 and 20% range the further you go down the draft board. It's a crapshoot. I do believe you should be drafting a quarterback at least once every 3 years, if not every 2 years. You should be drafting one for developmental purposes, and if he's the one, draft him. Hayner's also there.
I think that if you're talking about upside, I think Hall is your guy. Hall,
McKee's there.
You can't teach that kind of arm talent. I'm on Tanner McKee. I just don't think he has it. I'm thinking about Darius Rush, but you want the ability to draft a quarterback in the future, or at least take a shot at a quarterback. I think Hall's a guy worth taking a shot on. So we're going to pass on Rush, who, even though I absolutely love him, Jaren Hall is also a guy that I really love. So we're going to take Jaren Hall, quarterback, BYU, and we're going to hope that we can develop him into the quarterback of the future. Let's take a look. There are some interesting players on the board. Alex Austin is at the top at Oregon State. Puka Nacua, who I also like, but we're neglecting not going to be
remarks.
What am I doing?
I keep No, it's me. I keep neglecting the remarks, and I apologize to all our viewers.
Yeah, we're just going to blame that on Odie. Odie, okay. It's your fault.
Gary, we're not trading on this draft. We'll do plenty of drafts where we do trade.
Yeah. So
and most likely Kwesi will trade. He has not stuck at any spot he's ever had. So last year.
Mm-hmm. All right. So this is interesting, Dave. We have Terrell Smith, the Minnesota quarterback. We have got Rajon Wright, Alex Austin, both from Oregon State. I think Jacorian Bennett's there from Maryland. I think if you're going to look at a guy that you want to take at the cornerback position, I think you really need to consider taking a slot guy, because then you can have Byron Murphy on the outside, and Bennett played at the outside at Maryland. So I would go Jacorian Bennett, cornerback, Maryland here. I think Rajon Wright is too much of a zone guy. His brother Nashawn ended up being selected in the third round by the Cowboys, and he was a zone kind of corner. Alex Austin, I think, can play some man, but I would want to take Jacorian Bennett here. All right. We have one pick left. One thing that's jumping out to me, Dave, is there's a lot of wide receivers on the board.
There's a lot of corners we've gone through and a lot of wide receivers, sort of highlighting the edges that are popping up.
So the edge that I think we should end up talking about is DJ Johnson from Oregon. He's a bigger guy. He's a talented player. He can win on the edge as far as like rushing the passer. I think that might be the smartest play here, is to take DJ Johnson, because I think he offers a little bit of upside, and especially because you're drafting it at, this is going to end up being pick 211, because the way the Draft Network simulator works is a little different than what's in reality, just because they're not physically removing the picks, just how they have things coded. And I would take DJ Johnson, because I think that's that size, that athleticism profile, and the ability to play the run, and be a versatile piece, because they were asking him at 265 pounds, Dave, to drop in coverage, and he looked natural doing it at the Senior Bowl. And I think that's going to be a big thing. So I think we end up getting some really talented football players here, Dave. I don't know if the draft is going to end up shaping up like this, but you get 2 defensive backs in an area where you needed it. You get a wide receiver. You get a quarterback you can potentially develop. And you know what? If things don't work out with Jaren Hall, guess what? You just go back to it at 2024.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's a 4th-round pick. You don't have to make this guy the quarterback of the future. You hope you can. At the very least, guess what? You have a quality, cheap backup for a few years. Like, that was the idea with Kellen Mond. It's just Kellen Mond sucked. Like, there's really no other way to put it. I really like what the Vikings ended up doing here, Dave. How do you feel about this draft? If this were to be the reality, what would your take be?
Well, it's not going to be the reality because we know Kwesi's going to trade backwards, forwards, sideways. As for a Hall, I'd be okay. Let's roll. There's nothing that puts me over the moon with this draft, but there's nothing that disappoints me either. I'd be looking forward to getting more into each individual person's tape, especially when we're talking big bodies on the line, edge, and looking for myself, and we'll go from there. But it's not a disappointment, nor is it a let's go out, we're going to celebrate, we're going to go to the Super Bowl type of draft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think
like
the Vikings
Branch.
are going to be. I love Brian Branch. He is one of my favorite players in this class.
Isn't he a little bit grabby? They got to coach that
when
out
he's
of
playing,
him. But a lot of college players are.
Yeah, you get away with a lot more in college, and college coaches are a lot more forgiving, and they don't care as much, I think, is the best way to put it. So I think that's what we're looking at here. Grabby's fine. You can coach that out. But Dave, that's our show. Pretty good show. I'm happy with it, and I hope you guys really enjoyed yourself. Couple housekeeping things before we get out of here. Please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to help us continue to grow the channel. 3 weeks in, we're already at 400 subscribers. That is pretty damn cool. And actually, sorry, we're 4 away from 400. We are at 300.
We're real close. Mm-hmm. Hopefully
so,
tonight, after people watch this, they hit the like, subscribe, and we go over 400.
Yes. I would love.
Feel free to share with all your Vikings friends too. And we talk about growing the community. And we've seen some folks on here from Justin at Purple and Gold for Days, and the Triple P is been on here tonight as well, talking to Purple Podcast, talking about popping your piece, and you better have your microphone ready for that. There's tons. We're all within the same space, and we all like talking to you, the viewer, as to what sort of ideas you have, how you'd like to see things go, and we give you a relatively safe space, to take a modern term, to talk about the Vikings and express your feelings. We're just part of that. We want to grow, to get even bigger, to return at least to where we were with Climb in the Pocket, and start that all over. You can catch our podcasts, which are generally a recut of this show, on your favorite podcast aggregator. So if you're driving to work, I got a good friend, Rydell, from England. He doesn't get to watch these because he's sleeping. So what he usually does is he sticks a podcast in the morning on the drive to work. You have that. All the links are in the remarks below. You can also go to our link tree at Vikings First and SKOL, and you can see all of them. There is a boatload of them where you can find our show. You can find our Twitter. You can find YouTube. You can find all the podcasts. It's all there for you guys to find and share with your favorite Vikings friends, and even your Packers buddies that you want to irritate. We're there for them too, because we like irritating them just as much.
Absolutely. Please Like, comment, subscribe there. Give us a 5-star review so we can continue to grow and share all this great information with everybody who's a fan of the Minnesota Vikings. Also, couple things here. We have multiple shows this week. We have from USA Today, Doug Farrar joining at 11 a.m. this Wednesday. Now, all these will be live, but you'll be able to catch them on demand whenever you want. So whenever works best for your schedule. He wrote a piece about Hendon Hooker that is completely contradictory to what I think about him. And I think it's interesting. So we're going to bring him on to have a real discussion about it. And we're going to talk about why he thinks the offense is actually good for projecting the NFL and break it down, because he did it with film. And I think that's the best process, is to have everything rooted in film and based off of that. Then on Thursday, 1 o'clock Central Time, we're going to have Damian Parson of the Draft Network joining. We're going to be talking about edge rushers. We're going to be talking about who would be the best fit for the Minnesota Vikings and what they could end up doing. And Friday, time to be determined, we're going to have Devin Jackson, the Philadelphia Inquirer. If you remember, he's been on a few shows with me, and he is one of the smartest draft minds in the business today, and he's going to join me to talk about the Minnesota Vikings as well. And we're not quite sure what position group we're going to be talking about just yet. It'll probably end up being running backs, but I will confirm that with you. Listen, we have a lot going on, and don't forget, we also have 2 old bloggers. Are you guys still Saturdays, Dave?
Still Saturdays at 4 o'clock, where Darren and I look at all the happenings in the Vikings land of what happens during the week, and we editorialize. It's the best way to put it. It's a long-form show. We talk about, get into depth. Now, I can guarantee you we are down to our last and final group of players to look at, the special teamers. That's probably going to be a relatively quick one as our State of the Vikings series. We are also going to start looking at the draft. It's April, folks. We'll be less than 3 weeks away once 2 Old Bloggers hits on Saturday. So we're going to be looking at that from the old-timers' point of view, what we need and how to go about it, what we think Kwesi's going to do, because that's the big question. How are the Vikings going to maneuver around, at the end of the month? We've got 5 draft picks. Will we have more? Will we move up and spend money from next year? Let's find out.
It's going to be a fun ride, and we are going to have draft coverage of some form, everybody, but we don't know 100% what that's going to look like. And the second we do, you will hear from us. We're going to have plenty of coverage with the NFL draft, and it's going to be fun.
Yep, and because of us going independent, we will not be doing a ball-to-wall. We don't have the resources to do such, but we will be doing draft coverage, a lot of reaction type, maybe hop on as we're getting ready to make those picks. It's all in the early planning stages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's going to be a lot of fun, guys. We're going to have a great time. And I appreciate everybody supporting us, everybody tuning in and listening here tonight. And listen, have yourself a great week. We will see you Wednesday morning as we continue to talk Minnesota Vikings football. And Dave, what is the one thing that we say at the end of every single show?
SKOL Vikings!
SKOL Vikings, baby!
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching the Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone!